You're listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show, where wealth is empowering, purpose is crucial, and high vibes are non-negotiable. And now, here's your host, certified business coach and practical woo strategist, Sarah J. Loureiro.
Hey Biz Babe, do you feel like you have a beautiful, big vision for your business yet are struggling to bring in consistent clients? If so, I totally know how you feel and I've got you. I used to struggle with getting and booking consistent clients when I first started my first business 4 years ago. But after implementing this amazing 6-pillar system that I've figured out for myself, I was able to get fully booked literally within a matter of weeks. If you want the same system, I'm actually giving it away for free in my fully booked in 30 days checklist for coaches and creatives. So you can find that on bit.ly/fully booked in 30. That's capital F, capital B, fully booked in 30. Check it out. I promise you that it is going to help you so much. All right, you guys, welcome back to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show with me, Sarah J. Loureiro, certified business coach and practical woo strategist. And today on the podcast, I have the incredible Andrea Willett. Andrea is actually one of my clients. She is a business coach and she also does a lot of practical woo herself. She does a lot of attraction strategies with her clients, and she ultimately helps soulful coaches who are looking to quit their 9-to-5 have consistent 5K months and really live through their purpose. We're going to be talking today a lot more about the resiliency and kind of the behind the scenes stuff that not a whole lot of people talk about. And Andrea has been very, very vulnerable, I guess, like very open to being vulnerable on this episode in the hopes that she can inspire other people who might be going through something similar. So welcome, Andrea, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh my gosh, Sarah, what an introduction. Like, can you just live in my house and introduce me? Because that was incredible. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be on the show today.
Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. Honestly, like when we were kind of just talking right before we hit record, and from everything in my notes, and kind of even just from our work together, I feel like it's not talked about enough, and I'm really excited. All right, so do you want to tell us anything more about yourself? How you got to the space that you're in? Let's talk away, my dear.
You know I can talk. Okay, so I want to start with letting everybody here know that I've been in the online space for 10 years. I started in online business when I was 16 years old when Facebook business pages came out. And I walked around my little hometown and I asked all of the small business owners that I could find if they needed help setting up their Facebook business pages. I probably did it for $25 or $50. Something ridiculously low like that, because I had no idea what to do. I had no idea how to charge or how to value my work, but I loved online business, and that just set the rest of my life in motion pretty much. Like, the second I started doing that, I fell in love with online marketing, and I have been in this space for the last 10 years, and I am a strategy queen. I tried all of the strategies, and I always say that if strategy alone was what made people a millionaire, I would have been a millionaire by the time I was 18. But I think that we both know that that's not the whole picture. So I love online business. This has been the love of my life for my entire life, and I am so excited that I get to share this with your podcast people.
Yay, yes. Oh my goodness. I don't think you've ever told me that part of the story about how you've been doing this for 10 years. That is incredible. There's so much experience there. And so let's talk a little bit more about this resiliency, because I think this is really going to be the crux of everything that we navigate on this episode. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with kind of the diagnosis that you had a few years ago?
Sure. So just to give a tiny bit of backstory on that, I've been in the online space for 10 years. I have not had a business that I could take a salary from, though, until last year. Okay? So this was a long road for me. But 3 years ago now, I was hustling. I was a graphic design and online marketing freelancer. I was working like 30 or 40 hours a week at the restaurant that I side hustled at. I made no money from my business. I was running myself into the ground. I had no idea what was going on. And then I felt weird at work one day, went to the doctors and found out that I had a really big brain tumor on the back of my brain. And so luckily it was not brain cancer or anything like that. It was something that was able to be removed just from surgery, and I am totally fine now. But as I'm sure you can imagine, the 60-hour work weeks that I was working up to that point quickly became a no-go for me, and I had to completely rebuild, completely rethink my strategy, and completely figure out what to do, because going into a 40-hour work week 9 to 5 was not an option for me because of the chronic pain and the side effects that my brain surgery left me with. So my options were pretty much go on disability, which is an amazing option for so many people, or to figure out a way to start a business that was in alignment with me, that didn't drain my energy, that allowed me to live my purpose, and that really allowed me to thrive. And keep in mind, I was 23 when I was diagnosed with this brain tumor. So facing the rest of my life, not being able to work, not being able to live my purpose, not being able to build the empire that I literally dreamed of since I was a little girl, was crushing to me. And that is the place that I had to get to rebuild my business. So I understand when people tell me, Andrea, listen, you don't know how hard things are for me right now, and there's no way that I can move forward from this place. First off, I hear you. It's really hard to be at a rock bottom. I get emotional just thinking about how difficult some of those days were for me and how much uncertainty that I had, because that is so, so scary. But please, if you take anything from this interview, know that rock bottom was the foundation that I am building what will be $1 million business from. And that can be your story too. And if I would have listened to all of the thoughts in my head that told me that there was no way I'd be able to do this, and all of the people that told me that I should just slow down and take a seat, then I never would have been here. And now I'm building the business of my dreams in a completely nourishing and thriving way. And I'm just here to tell other women that that's possible for them too.
I love that. And that obviously is not easy, right? So we're talking about the whole well, this is the foundation that I built all of this from, but what was going on for you? Like what type of emotions were going on even before the diagnosis, right? Because you were such a hustler. You were one of those people who were like, yeah, no problem, 60-hour work weeks, piece of cake, right? Like, this is how I'm going to build my empire. This is what I know to be true in terms of what I need to do. How frustrating was that for you when you were like, what is going on with my body? Why can't I do this?
Yeah, for like the last few weeks before I was diagnosed, I knew that something had to be wrong. As I'm sure you can imagine, having a brain tumor growing on your brain, yeah, your body's sort of like, I don't feel quite right. And that was definitely my situation. And even before I started to show symptoms, I was working 60 hours a week. I was waking up and starting working on my business at like 7 in the morning, working until 5, then going across the street to the restaurant that I worked at, and then working until midnight, and doing that every single day because my business made me no money. And I was just sitting there downloading every freebie I could find, being like, another grow your 6-figure business checklist? Perfect. That's going to be what I need. And I'm like, had like this, I don't know, graveyard of freebies that went to die because I just thought that, I must just be like one strategy away. But in truth, I didn't love graphic design anymore. I wasn't living in my purpose, and I had no mindset work. And what my brain tumor forced me to develop was a resilient and positive mindset. And it was actually my brain tumor that encouraged me to develop the skills that I needed to actually grow and catapult my business.
And so, what was going on for you, let's say, for example, right after the brain tumor? Because I know that we've also discussed this in terms of, you being like slightly frustrated with your abilities, or with, like you just wanted to hit the ground running again, but then it was like, oh my goodness, now I have this entirely new brain, right? And these entirely new boundaries that you've had to navigate. And I feel like there's so many people who can relate to this, not just in terms of physical illness, but also in terms of, like moms who are just completely swamped, or, households where one person gets laid off, and then the other person, who's trying to grow a business has to now like pick up the slack. And just, there's all of these different measures that we constantly have to deal with. And not everyone has that perfect, like, well, my husband or my partner, makes a lot of money or whatever. And I have, a fully functioning body and a perfectly healthy brain. And, and I have all of this support, and that's how I'm going to build my business. Right. So what was going on for you after the brain tumor? And after the removal, where you were kind of like, okay, I have to relearn.
Um, it was a mixture of the things that I took for granted my whole life. I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of millennials grew up typing, right? I could type 90 words a minute before my brain tumor. And my brain tumor caused a partial paralysis on the left side of my body. So now I have like a limited range of motion. I struggle to walk a lot of the times, especially if I'm tired. And I say that the best way for me to describe it is that my left hand doesn't listen. So when I'm typing, my left hand doesn't really know what to do. So for the first 6 months, like typing was an unrealistic expectation for me. So it was really, really frustrating for even little things. For even just doing little things like, oh, I'd love to write a Facebook post. I have a great idea, but it took me 45 minutes to write it out, and now I'm exhausted. So there was definitely that aspect of it. And something that I really had to do is I could only spend about 2 hours in front of my computer screen a day because I was so sensitive to the blue light. What I was forced to do instead of spending 60 hours a week on my computer, like I would have loved to be doing, what I was forced to do instead was work on my computer for as long as I could comfortably. And then I spent the rest of my time doing things like journaling, doing things like mindset work, doing things like manifestation work and affirmations, all just reaffirming to myself that even though I have been through it in the past year, it doesn't mean that I have nothing to offer, and it doesn't mean that I have nothing of value to share, and that this story would make me so much more resilient with my mission and to my clients and within my business. And this would ultimately just be something that I look back on and I'm grateful for. And even though it was the scariest time in my life, 3 years later, I can say that this was the biggest quantum shift that I'd ever been, because I needed to become a new person. So I also want to say really, really quickly that we're talking a lot about brain tumors, which sound so scary and so not relatable. And like Sarah said, your rock bottom will probably not look like a brain tumor. Like, let's be real. But it wasn't people with brain tumors that I could relate to most at that time. It was people who were being honest and vulnerable about their stories. It was my friend who was talking about how hard of a time she was having coming out of her 4th trimester with her first baby, because her entire life was different and everything was so good, but everything was also so hard. And it was people who had gotten into car accidents. It had people who had been laid off. It doesn't matter what your rock bottom looks like for it to really shake you to your core. And all I want in this story is for you to know that if you're going through it, you can build from this place, and it doesn't have to mean that you have a brain tumor or anything like that.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And I think it's exactly what you're saying. It's what it's the feeling that it causes, right? It's the feeling that it generates. It's that paralysis, like not just literal paralysis, but the paralysis that you feel when you think like, damn, all of these things that I really wanted to do, my current life circumstances aren't allowing me to do them first. I feel like that's usually the first thought is my current life circumstances will not allow me to do what it is that I want to do, right?
Yeah.
But then the second thought, and I really do think like this is where you totally have like, won the trophy and how incredible you are, is that the second thought is no, my life circumstances don't need to define who I am and what I'm capable of. And when you can function from that place, that is when, it's what you're saying. You still built your business. You're still signing on consistent clients. You are still, and you're just getting started, right? You are still doing all of these things that you really wanted to do. It just looks different.
Yeah. And it's okay that it looks different. And that's something I really had to come to terms with. It's okay that my path to this point, even since my brain tumor, wasn't linear. Sometimes it would mean having to take 3 weeks off because I just could not get back to my computer. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And like I said, I really do liken this to just so many stories and so many clients that I've been able to serve who have something very similar, who have a similar trajectory in terms of like, I don't have the ideal circumstances, right? And like people don't know how I feel. And I remember I have this one amazing client. I absolutely love her. And when we first started working together, she was just like, she told me she had 3 kids. She told me that she had, her husband was going through a lot of issues himself where he had to take time off of work, and she was like, she was the wheel. She was the glue that held everything together in her family. But not once did she complain about that. And I remember navigating all of our sessions together. And she even told me at one point in time, she's like, I'm so grateful that you actually understand that I have limited resources and that like I have limited time and that I don't have the ideal circumstances. And so she really appreciated when I was able to see that with her. And I'd love to hear what you have to say about this too, because what we used to work on together was like understanding and acknowledging that her circumstances weren't ideal, and not trying to, like not trying to make the excuse that like, oh, whatever it is that you're going through is only an excuse, right? Because I think a lot of people, it's very easy to push it all away. It's very easy to be like, Andrea, this is all excuses, right? It's all in your head. The more that you can let go of it, the better off you'll be. Because no, these are very legitimate things, like, right? Like only being able to stare at your computer for 2 hours at a time is a very real thing, right? Like me as your coach, I'm not going to sit there and say, no, that's just an excuse, right? Like if you want to be successful, you have to spend 4 hours a day in front of your computer or whatnot. But I think it's really important to acknowledge that it's there, right? So even with my other client, it's just, okay, acknowledge that you have 3 very young children and a husband in need, but then also acknowledging the fact that you can still make it work, right? Like, let's find out ways that you can make it work. And so for her, it was waking up at like 4 or 5 in the morning. And she was willing to do that because she really wanted her business. She really, really wanted to create this big vision for herself. And I think it's so admirable when you're faced with so many of these really, really difficult circumstances that there's always a way to rise above them.
Yeah, and that's what resiliency meant for me. And I was never someone who thought that I was resilient. This is going to sound like kind of braggy and like stupid, but I was really, really smart. And like, I really, really loved getting A's in high school and in elementary school. And I really loved that. Homework was never something I had to work hard on. So when I got to college, I really, really struggled because I never had built that resiliency. And then I told myself over and over and over again that I wasn't resilient. And this whole experience has proven to me that the opposite is true, and that resiliency is just a mindset. Resiliency isn't even what you do in your day to day. For me, resiliency was knowing that I could only spend 2 hours on my computer, showing up for those 2 hours, and then stepping away to do mindset work and to do manifestation work, knowing that all I need to do to be resilient and all I need to do to step in and call in my next level self was to show up as the best version of me and the most aligned, purpose-driven version of me every single day. And that didn't have to mean working an 8-hour day on a computer every single day. Now I run my business in about 15 to 20 hours a week, and I do a lot of inner work and I do a lot of manifestation work to make that happen. And that's ultimately been what my resiliency has looked like.
I love that. I love that. And so, for everyone listening, and let's say, for example, anyone who feels like they also have these really, really tight constraints on themselves, what do you feel like has been the most helpful for you in terms of understanding how it is that you can still grow your business and how it is that you can still scale your business without needing to, literally without needing to spend 8 hours a day or 60 hours a week working on it when you know that you don't have that time?
What I would suggest to somebody who is going through their own rock bottom is first, before you take any of my business advice, I see you. That's so hard. And if you ever need to talk or anything like that, feel free to email me or DM me because I know what you're going through. You're going through it, and that is so hard. So before you take any business advice, please be okay with yourself. But what else? The other thing that I would say is that honestly, your success will come from your mindset. Your success will come to your commitment to your mindset work. And you could have lost your ability to use your hands, or you could struggle to type, or you could struggle to walk around. And you might feel like you have so little options available to you. But your mindset work might look like affirmations that you say in your head in front of the mirror. It might look like journaling on a piece of paper if being in front of your computer is too difficult. It might look like working with a coach or a mentor that really lifts you up and raises you up. But ultimately, it will be your mindset and not necessarily the amount of effort you put in that moves you forward. Because I have transformed my life working 20 hours a week, and I'm not that special. Like, this is like, sorry, mom. Like, I know my mom's going to disagree, but like, I'm not. This is this is available to you. This is something that you can do too.
I love that. I love that. Um, and I think that's where it really comes into is the whole acknowledge it first, right? It's okay to acknowledge that this is a shitty situation that you've been dealt with. And so I feel like it's because in coaching, everything is about shifting ourselves from the victim to the empowered. And a lot of the times I'm even guilty of this myself, towards myself is, not balancing the whole giving myself zero excuses, but also understanding that sometimes, like I too have physical limitations, or I too have mental limitations, or I'm getting sick so I need to relax, and that whole zero excuse thing doesn't need to apply in every single situation.
Yeah.
And I remember that one client that I was talking about, she came back to me and she was like, it's so refreshing to work with someone like you, because the previous coaches that she had worked with before, they didn't acknowledge the fact that she had 3 kids and, like had all of these different things that were going on in her life. So I think it's so important to really be able to also just give yourself a pat on the back in the beginning of it, right? Like, by all means, do not, and I hate the victim mindset, and this is something I'm always going to coach my clients out of. And but I also think it's so important to acknowledge it, acknowledge the pain, right? Acknowledge the limitations, acknowledge the struggle. And it's exactly what you're saying, right? Like, not everyone goes through this, so not everyone understands it, but it's what you do as a result.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't, if I would have kept a victim mindset, I wouldn't have been able to get to where I am today. And it is possible to let go of that no matter how bleak your outlook is. And it's also, and letting go of that, a big part of that process is being patient with yourself and the fact that letting go of that isn't an instant process. Like, I still have moments during my day where I'm like, I wish that things were easier for me. I wish that this could be better. And what I have to do, sometimes I even watch those like kind of cheesy, uplifting Facebook ad videos where like someone's really, really sick and they've learned to walk again. And I just think about how inspiring that is. And I just remind myself that if I stop showing up, I can't be that for somebody else. And when I work with clients who are going through a hard time, that's the first thing I tell them too.
That's so beautiful. I love that. Those videos are really inspiring. I love looking at them too. So, and let's talk a little bit more about the strategic part of this as well, because I know that how you've kind of been talking about mindset. You've been talking about how important it was, how little you realized really before the tumor and before that whole like catalyst event, that you were just kind of hustling through everything and you weren't really focusing on being, which I think is amazing. It's incredible. But also, let's talk a little bit more about like strategically how you've really needed to hone in on the quality of work that you're doing for the 20 hours a week, right? Versus working 60 hours. Because sometimes some of us work 60 hours a week, but we don't do like crap all, right? We end up thinking like, oh,
situation.
yeah, exactly. And I know I've done that too. I've been there where I'm just like, yeah, I'm just the more hours I work, the better off I'm going to be. Whereas like the total opposite is true. But how have you managed to, build a business off of a 20-hour work week, especially, especially in the beginning stages? Because I know a lot of the beginning stages, it's we really do need to put a little bit more time into things while we're getting our system set up. But how did you navigate that? Like, do you have any strategy hacks or like time management hacks that you'd love to share?
Strategy hacks? Do I? Oh my goodness.
Let's hear them.
So the first thing I had to do is I had to do some energetic work, which if you know me or if you've followed me before, you know that that's pretty much my foundation for everything that I do. So what I had to learn to do is I had to learn how to embody my next level self. And my next level self didn't look like having $20,000 months at the time. My next level self was just running a business that I loved, running a business that I was passionate about. And I would feel into that future version of myself's energy through things like journaling prompts and through things like mindset work and visualization to think, okay, what would me running a super aligned and abundant business look like? And that aligned abundance has become the cornerstone of everything I do. That's the name of my one-on-one program. So what I had to do was I had to call in my next level self and I had to act from that energy. And very quickly, I realized that pretty much everything I was doing in my business was not worth my time. My only two priorities at that time had to be building my coaching program and selling my coaching program. Yeah. I wasn't worried about creating a ton of free content at the time. I stopped doing my podcast. I stopped posting in a ton of Facebook groups because I knew that I only had a limited amount of energy. And until I got building my coaching program off of my plate and getting comfortable with selling off of my plate, I didn't have the energy to take on more stuff. And so I was able to build and get my first client within about 3 weeks after, and this was almost a year and a half after my brain tumor. So this was I had to take 6 months off directly after my brain tumor, but that left me a year into trying to figure out what my path would be after this brain tumor. And because of that focus, I was able to finally launch my coaching program, start to finish, in about 3 weeks, sign my first client, and my first client was able to quadruple her income within 8 weeks of working with me. So
Yay.
I knew that was definitely what was next for me, is figuring out what an aligned business looks like for me and cutting out all of the noise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. It's the priorities, right? It's the focusing on what is going to be income generating for me in my business.
Yeah, and it
It's
wasn't oh, sorry.
It's so key.
Yeah, definitely. I also found myself hiding and procrastinating in a lot of busy work. Oh, I don't have time to develop my coaching program right now because I need to upload a podcast that isn't selling anything and isn't making me any money because I don't have anything to sell, like by cutting out all the noise, I had to stop hiding.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Amazing. I love that.
Oh my goodness. It was definitely quite the trip.
Yeah, but it just really forces you to think about, okay, well, what's really important in my business, right? Like, is me tweaking my website the 5th time, is that going to do anything for me? Or it's kind of like what you were talking about in terms of the freebies, like, okay, there's another 6 steps checklist to 6 figures, but do I really need that? Because I have, another 10 different checklists in my mailbox ready, right? And I haven't really used those either. So what is the next step for me?
Yeah, and please understand, I'm not hating on freebies. The problem with freebies is that if you're not implementing, and if you're not really finding freebies and teachers that deeply resonate or in alignment with you, they're just going to go to waste.
Yep, absolutely. I think the alignment is so key too, because we're usually, what happens, especially when we're kind of new to our businesses, is we're looking for all the freebies because we're looking for all the answers, and everyone has a different answer to your question. And so the more that you get all these different answers, the more confused that you get, right?
Yes.
That's why I always recommend, stick to between 1 and 3 coaches that you really resonate with in terms of who you want to learn from. And then everyone else, it doesn't matter if they have a strategy to make 6 figures in 4 months or whatever it is. Let the rest fall away, because you're already learning from the 3 people that you really resonate with. So they can show you the exact same thing.
Exactly. That's really, really well said.
Oh, thank you. And so we've been working together. We haven't actually been working together for that long yet, but we have been also working on, helping you to up-level everything that you're doing. And one of the biggest things that I told you, right, when we started strategizing and taking a look at all of your time, I was immediately like, we need to get you an intern.
Yes.
And so do you want to talk a little bit more about that, or just about the mindset around, asking for help?
Oh my goodness. I thought that I was okay with asking for help, you guys. I needed help to take showers for 6 months after my brain tumor, okay? I thought I could ask for help, everybody. But guess what? Sarah told me that I needed to hire an intern, and I spiraled for 3 days afterwards because I didn't feel ready. I didn't feel that my business was at that point, and I didn't feel ready to ask for help. So what I eventually did is I decided to kind of embody that next level self that I knew would be happy that I hired an intern. And if you're wondering what your next level self looks like, think about the big decision that you're scared to make, because that's usually when people really try to embody their next level selves. And think about how you would feel a year after making that decision, and ask yourself, am I happy that I did this? Or do I regret it? And honestly, that's kind of the quickest way to embody your next level self. But what I did is I had to embody my next level self and say, am I happy that I outsourced these different parts of my business, even though I was nervous about asking somebody if they'd like to help me out? The way that I hired my first intern is and we just started working together, is I coached her in exchange for her help on my Instagram, because that was something that I was really, really struggling with and really, really running out of energy to nurture to the best of my abilities. So ultimately, I, even 2 weeks ago, was terrified to take this step and thought, guess this is going to be my first piece of homework I don't do from Sarah. But even just in 2 weeks, the energetic shifts that come from taking a big leap and taking a big risk from your next level self is major.
Yes, I love that. And for you, especially, you already kind of seem to have a plan down for your 20-hour work week. But in terms of reach and in terms of organic visibility, it needed a little bit more of an oomph, right? We needed a little bit more of getting the right people to see your content. And so I can't wait to see what comes of this energetic exchange that you're now doing with this other person. That's super exciting.
And she's incredible. Like, I never thought that I would be able to find anybody so quickly to be able to help me as much as she has. And she has come through in such a major way. She's absolutely incredible. And it was just another example of you proving me wrong, Sarah.
And so we're talking about that energetic exchange with that intern. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the energetic exchange or that type of help that you realized that you needed when you were just like, okay, we have to work together. This needs to happen. And I can't keep on putting it off. Like it has to happen now. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that and like how that's helped you so far?
Yes, totally. So the thing with mindset work is that it's very difficult to do on your own. Like, I help my clients with mindset work. I help my clients with quantum shifting and calling in their next level. I help my clients launch their coaching programs quickly. And the thing is, even though I know what to say to them in those situations, self-coaching and coaching yourself is a completely different ballgame. And it's a much more difficult muscle to figure out. If you're somebody who has been really, really trying to grow your business for years and you just beat yourself up over and over again and you've never gotten a mentor, please stop beating yourself up, because you are literally doing it the hardest way possible. Because it's really, really hard to coach yourself. It just is. So ultimately, what I had to realize is that I wasn't growing as quickly as I wanted to grow. I have a really big dream of growing $1 million empire that empowers women to grow abundant businesses using their gifts and using their like divine feminine gifts. I have a dream of growing an empire that enables women to do that to the $1 million mark by the time I'm 30, and I'm turning 26 next week as of the time of recording.
Yay.
I'm so excited. It's going to be so great. But I also knew that at the rate I was going, I wasn't going to get there. And I knew that I couldn't see how I was doing it, because it's hard to zero in on your own mindset blocks. But I knew that I had to be doing it. I knew that I had to be getting in my own way. So I actually got on a coaching call with Sarah like a long time ago. I would say probably 3 or 4 months ago. And we enrolled me into your program, the Fully Booked Formula, and that was a major help. And then afterwards I said, this was great, but I'm looking at taking it even further. And you said, we need to work together one-on-one. I think you're getting into your own way in XYZ ways. And I said, wow, Sarah, you're so smart, because I definitely was getting in my own way. And she has really, really helped me up level in such a significant way. And it's so funny to me, because I bring her so many of the things that my own clients are struggling with. And this is why coaches need coaches, because I would struggle with the same thoughts and the same limiting beliefs that my clients were struggling with, and I could solve their problems in about 5 minutes, and my own problems would just loop in my brain and eat away at me all day long until I started working with Sarah.
That's amazing. That's so good to hear. And I totally agree with you. We can't see these things ourselves. It's really, really difficult to see these things ourselves. And not just the mindset work, but also the strategic work. Sometimes it's literally like, I mean, hiring an intern is part of a strategy, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's something that you never even thought of before. And then, and then then it also comes into the mindset work of just like, oh, do I need someone else's help? Am I comfortable with reaching out to someone else to help me? Right. But as soon as you do, it really, really sets you free. And so, yeah, I mean, we all, like, none of these things are really comfortable either. Right. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about coaching is that your coach will really push you outside of your comfort zone, but that's also where the growth happens. So you want to make sure that you're working with someone who isn't just, enabling everything that you're feeling, right? Who's acknowledging what you're feeling, but at the same time, who's willing and able to ask you the hard questions, right?
Yeah.
And really
having a coach is like having a personal trainer almost. Like a personal trainer at the gym who's going to encourage you to do all of your sets, but who also knows what it looks like if you're doing it in an unhealthy way or in a way that's going to end up holding you back in the long run because you're burning yourself out or you're doing a strategy that's out of alignment with you. And ultimately that's the mindset shift that I had to get to really hire my coach. I thought, oh, I've hired a personal trainer in the past to help me get results in my body. Why wouldn't I hire a personal trainer for my business? And that's really what you are.
I love that. I've never thought about it that way, but it's so true.
That was exactly the mindset shift. And when I talked to my partner about making the investment to work with you, that's what he said too. He's like, yeah, well, you hired a personal trainer to get your body back in shape after your brain tumor. And I guess that's what this is for your business. And I was like, yep, that's exactly how I think about it too.
I love supportive partners, by the way. I think they're absolutely incredible. Is there anything that you also needed? Because this is something I work a lot with other women on, is getting to a point where you feel confident enough in your decisions to go to your supportive partner and have them be even more supportive. Is there anything else that you felt like you needed to convey to your partner in order for them to see like the value of, your next level self and kind of everything that you wanted to do?
I'm so sorry. What was the question there?
I know. It's like a really long-worded question, but basically, what I love is, obviously there are a lot of people who have really supportive partners. There are a lot of people who unfortunately also don't. But what I find is that when we have our own frequency of confidence or just trust in our decisions, that's going to mirror onto our partners. So I'm wondering if there is anything that you needed to do for yourself or for your relationship in order for your partner to then be like, well, yeah, like you had a personal trainer and that helped you. So, do this whole business, like hire this business coach.
What I want everyone to understand is I did not wake up from my brain surgery being like, I'm ready to crush it. Elon Musk out. That wasn't my journey. It took me a long time to get to this place of resilience. Resilience is a muscle that you build, just like when you want that great butt and you do all those deadlifts at the gym. So understanding that 3 months after my brain surgery or 6 months after my brain surgery, if I would have come to Chris saying, hey, I want to invest 5 figures into a business coach to help me quantum shift and transcend this level and hit my next level so that I can have the impact I've always dreamed of hitting, he would have been like, no, that doesn't make any sense because you can barely handle what you have going on. And it's clear that you have not come to terms with where you're at and you don't trust yourself yet. But as I built that muscle, as I started to trust myself more and more, as I started to embody my next level self and realize that that version of me is fully existent and present vibrationally, she just doesn't exist in front of my eyes yet because human eyes barely work, okay? So knowing that my next level self was totally available, I just had to embody her vibrationally. Knowing that and starting that practice consistently was what really helped build my resilience, build my trust in myself, build my clarity, build my aligned business. And as I developed that and continued, I have such a level of confidence and self-assuredness now that when I went to my partner and said, hey, yeah, I think there's a business coach that's going to help me hit my $200,000 income goal in 2020, he said, yeah, that sounds about right. Like, she probably would, because he knows that I trust myself enough to follow through. And that wasn't a linear process, but I got there, and you can get there too.
I love that. I love that. I feel like we need to shout that from the rooftops. It's just like, trust yourself. The more that you trust yourself, the more that everyone around you is going to trust in you as well, right? Like that confidence, it doesn't even have to be confidence that just like that you're naturally born with or anything like that. It's a confidence that you cultivate. It's a trust that you cultivate. You're absolutely right. The more that you can really step into that and be confident with your decisions, the more that everyone around you is going to be like, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, you're totally going to do that, right? Because if you believe in yourself, then they're going to believe in you too. I feel like we could talk forever, Andrea.
We do almost every
and we probably would. Yeah. And it's such a joy to talk to you all of the time because I love your energy, and I think this resilience is really incredible. I feel like there are a lot of people who are going to relate to this episode. Tell us where we can find you. Tell us what you're doing right now. If anyone wants to connect with you, like how do they take that next step?
Okay. I'm so excited to share this because since I am working with such an awesome business coach, she has helped me really, really upgrade and nurture the communities that I'm building. So if anyone wants to jump into one of my my community on Instagram or my Facebook group community, guess what? It's poppin', and we would love to have you. So if you'd like to hang out with me on Facebook, you can join my Facebook group, Aligned Abundant Entrepreneurs. Or you can hang out with me on Instagram. My username is @AndreaO.co. And if you think I talk a lot in this interview, you should see me on my Instagram stories. And if I'm not talking, I'm singing to my cats. So strap in. It's going to be crazy. Okay? Or can I offer them something for free, Sarah?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh my goodness. So you guys, know how I talked about my journaling process and embodying my next level self and how crucial that was for me getting out of my rock bottom? I have a list of my favorite journaling prompts for you. So if you're like, journaling prompts, sign me up. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do, okay? So if you head over to www.andreao.co/Sarah, you will get my quantum shift journaling prompts. And these are the journaling prompts that I share with my one-on-one clients that I used personally to transform my life, that sometimes I can reluctantly convince my partner to do, and that I would love for you to use to help you really embody your next level self and make confident decisions that will move you forward.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So we will definitely link all of that up in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for being here, Andrea. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh my goodness. Sarah, thank you for having me. This has given me so much life.
Good. Oh, I'm so glad.
Hey, did you like or love this episode? If so, I would so appreciate it if you left a review and rated this episode on iTunes. It would literally mean so much to me. And if you have Instagram and are all up in your Instagram stories like I am, I would love it if you would share this episode with your beautiful followers so they can also get all of the high vibes, all of the free information that I'm giving you here. Thank you so, so much.
Thanks for listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. If you enjoy our show and would like the show notes and free goodies about how to grow your online coaching business, head over to sarahjlorero.com for more information. We hope you'll tune in next time.